Today's discussion will be entirely on residential status of Hindu undivided family. I'll be starting with Hindu undivided family. Then let us say as time proceeds, we can go further. Residential status of Hindu undivided family. Pay attention. An Hindu undivided family is called as resident if control and management of an Hindu undivided family is situated wholly or partly in India. What? I repeat. Control and management. Let us say a Hindu undivided family is running a textile business which manufactures clothes. A Hindu undivided family runs a textile business which manufactures clothes. The plant is located somewhere in Singapore. The plant is located somewhere in Singapore. The entire business is controlled in India. The brains of the business, the main decision making, not the day-to-day affairs of the business. The main decision making of the business is happening in India. Then the Hindu undivided family will be called as resident Hindu undivided family. I repeat, where the business is going on is not relevant to us. Where the day-to-day affairs of the business is going on is not relevant to us. Where the transactions are taking place is not relevant to us. What is relevant is control and management of Hindu undivided family. There you can see a column which explains you what is control and management. Control and management means this is the central control and not day-to-day operations of the business. When I say textile business, day-to-day operation means what? Purchase, production, sales, all those things are day-to-day operations. Whereas control means what? All the decision making, how much production should be taken place, from whom purchase has to happen, when purchase has to be stopped, when production has to happen, what are the changes in the policies. All these things are to be decided at one place. If such a place is located either wholly or partly, there is no such categorization that it should be wholly in India, all the members should be in India. There is nothing like that. Wholly or partly, if the decisions are taking place in India, you are going to call it as resident. Further speaking about control and management, it relates to place where head and brain of the adventure. Head and brain. Why head and brain? Head and brain are the place where decisions are happening. Just because you have a shop at some location, that doesn't mean the decision has to happen regarding the shop at that place. The people who are taking the decision may be located at very different area. A construction business might be happening in India. A construction business might have been established in India, but decision regarding the same thing is happening in Singapore through an HUF. Then it will be called as non-resident. It implies a functioning of controlling and directing power at a particular place with some degree of permanence. So it is not the shifting location of the business. You may conduct business at different locations, but the decision is happening at one permanent location. Some degree, it is not that 100% permanence. Some degree of permanence. This some degrees and all are not defined. It depends on reasonable degree. We can say the reasonable degree of permanence. Based on that, you are going to determine the residential status of Hindu undivided family. So very simple. If control and management of an Hindu undivided family is located wholly or partly in India, call it as resident Hindu undivided family. Else, call it as non-resident Hindu undivided family. So residential status of Karta is not important. Residential status of co-personers is not important. Residential status of decision making of an Hindu undivided family is relevant to us. As simple as that. But further, we classified individual and HUF under same category. Reason being, it is further to be categorized as ordinary resident or not ordinary resident. For that purpose, you are going to check what is the residential status of Karta. Now Karta's residential status will come into picture. Same rules which we applied for checking out ordinary resident or not ordinary resident, that is 2 years and 730 days. Same thing will apply here. So first, step number 1 in case of HUF, what you will do? Check if HUF's control and management is located either partly or wholly in India. If it is located partly or wholly in India, call it as resident HUF. Else call it as non-resident. If it is resident HUF, then go and check the residential status of Karta. If Karta was in India if Karta was resident in India for at least 2 years out of 10 years preceding the previous year, and if Karta was in India for 730 days or more in 7 years preceding the previous year, then the HUF will be called as ordinary resident. Else, the HUF will be called as not ordinary resident. So first, control and management. Where is the control? Where is the management? Located in India, wholly or partly resident. No, not located in India, non-resident. If resident, ask Mr. Karta, where were you for last 10 years? In the last 10 years preceding the previous year, were you a resident in India for at least 2 years? And did you stay in India for at least 730 days in 7 years preceding the previous year? If both the conditions satisfied, then HUF will be called as ordinary resident, else HUF will be called as not ordinary resident. First step alli ಯಾರ ರೆಸಿಡೆನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ಬೇಡ, HUF ನ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಉಂಟು ಅದನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ನಾಟ್ ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು? ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ನಾಟ್ ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಕರ್ತ ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ದ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಕರ್ತ 10 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ, ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷದ ಮುಂಚಿನ 10 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ at least 2 years ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ, and he has stayed during the 7 years preceding the previous year for at least 730 days in India, then the HUF will be called as resident, ordinary resident, else HUF will be called as not ordinary resident. Tell me yes if you understood these simple points. This point to understand, we have already discussed everything in individual status, so there is no much scope for confusion here. I hope it is very clear to you. This residential status of Hindu undivided family. Sir, ordinary resident not ordinary resident categorization ಬರೋದು ಎರಡೇ ಕೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್ ಕೇಸ್, HUF ಕೇಸ್. HUF ಕೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ನಾಟ್ ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಕರ್ತನ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಕರ್ತನ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಕರ್ತ is nothing but the head of the family. Head of the family who is leading the business. Yes. So this is about residential status of HUF. Coming to residential status of firms or association of persons. You are experts with the partnership because Partnership Act is done, I guess. Partnership. What is partnership? Partnership is association of persons who have come together for sharing the profits out of the business carried on by all or anyone acting for all. How will you determine the residential status of a firm or association of person? Association of person means nothing but combination of different organizations who have come together for running a business. It will be called as resident. A firm or association of person will be called as resident in India. Again, if control and management of the affairs is situated wholly or partly in India. Same thing, just like HUF. But the thing is, here there is no further categorization as to ordinary resident and not ordinary resident. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ನಾಟ್ ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ವಿಷಯ ಬರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಖಾಲಿ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ನಾನ್ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್. ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ? If a firm has to be called as resident, how will you determine? If the control and management, this word is important for you, that's it. Control and management. Control and management. Repeat, control and management. I repeat, control and management of the affairs of the company, of the organization, that is of the firm. Sorry, in this case, of the firm. Control and management of the firm is situated either wholly or partly in India. You will be calling it as resident firm, else you will be considering it as non-resident. Very simple. That is why I took elaborate time for discussion of individual, because in individual understanding the rules are very important. Here it is very simple. Here what? Control and management. If you understand the control and management, that is sufficient. Control and management, decision making, head and brains, decision making, where the decision making is happening. Where the decision making is happening. Yes. Going ahead. In case of company, how will you determine? In case of company, residential company. If the company is an Indian company, very simple. What is Indian company? Those companies which are registered under Companies Act of India. are called as Indian company. Company would be resident in India in any previous year if it is an Indian company or its place of effective management in that year is in India. Again, illiyu kuda control management, but see, in case of Indian company, the company which has been incorporated in India, even if the decision making is happening outside India, still it will be called as resident company. But in case of other companies, ಬೇರೆ ಕಂಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವ ಕಂಪನಿ, ಬೇರೆ ಕಂಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಕಾರ್ಪೊರೇಟ್ ಆದಂತ ಕಂಪನಿಗಳು ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ a place of effective management ನಡೆಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. What is place of effective management? A place where key management decisions that are necessary for the conduct of the business, key management decisions, board of directors ನ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, board decisions ಗಳು ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. In such a case, board decisions ಗಳು ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, board of directors ನ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. In such a case, you will be calling it as resident company. I'm not saying Indian company, resident company. ಒಂದು ಫಾರಿನ್ ಕಂಪನಿ, ಅದರ ಕೀ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಗಳು ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ, ಅದರ ಡೇ ಟು ಡೇ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಗಳು ಬೇರೆ ಕಂಟ್ರಿಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದು, ಬಟ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಫಾರ್ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ಮೇಕಿಂಗ್ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ರಿಲೈಯಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ. In that case, such a company will also be called as resident company. Such a company will also be called as resident company. So with this, we can conclude the topic of residential status of the different persons. So individual cases only, you will first determine whether the person is resident or non-resident. If the person is resident, you will further classify it as resident, ordinary resident, resident, not ordinary resident. In case of HUF, first you will determine the residential status of HUF. Where is the management and control? You will see if it is in India, wholly or partly, you will call it as resident, else non-resident. If it is resident, further you will go and check the residential status of Karta. If Karta is ordinary resident, then HUF will be ordinary resident. If Karta is not ordinary resident, HUF will be not ordinary resident. Going on further, in case of association of persons, in case of firms, body of individuals, if control and management is wholly located or partly located in India, we will be calling it as resident, else non-resident. In case of companies, if the company is an Indian company or if the company's place of effective management is in India, then the company will be called as resident, else the company will be called as non-resident. Tell me yes if you understood the residential status of different persons. Yes. Others, only Sushruti is replying here. What about others? I want everyone to respond if you have understood this. If you have any doubts, please do raise. We'll discuss it and then we'll move further. Yes, sir, 3 bag full. Okay. Scope of taxation based on residential status. Once you understood the residential status, this part is very easy. What are you going to see? For whom which income is taxable? For resident, ordinary resident, what is taxable? For resident, not ordinary resident, what is taxable? For a resident, so for non-resident, what is taxable? Very simple. Here there are many sentences, but I'll give you very simple logic. For a resident, who is presenting there? My screen is visible. Someone started presenting. Please stop. Now it is visible, I guess. Yes. Okay. Very simple. For a resident, ordinary resident, everything is taxable in India. For a resident, ordinary resident, everything is taxable. Whether the income arises in India or whether the income arises outside India. Foreign country earn ಮಾಡಿದ income ಇಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು. ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಅರ್ನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು. ಯಾರಿಗೆ? ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್, ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್. ಫಾರ್ ಅ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್, ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್, everything is taxable. Income may have been accrued or arised in any place. It will be taxable in India. But there are 3 sentences. Let us understand the 3 sentences for our clarity, so that you can improve the quality of your answer. ಈ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಅಷ್ಟು ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಇರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಅಷ್ಟು ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಇರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಆನ್ ದೀಸ್ 3 sentences so that we will have a better understanding. In case of resident, ordinary resident, total income of such SSE would consist of, while computing the taxable income, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಮೊನ್ನೆ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ದೇವೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ. ಆ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೆಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ? ಫಾರ್ ಅ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್, income received or deemed to be received in India during previous year. Sir, he works in India, he earns a salary in India. Income received in India. He has deposit in Indian banks, interest received in India. He is receiving a dividend from Indian company, dividend received in India. He sells his property and gains a capital gain that is arising in India. He wins a lottery in India, the lottery income which he has gained. So everything that he has received in India or deemed to be received. What is deemed to be received? Deemed to be received means actually he is not receiving. Actually avana kaige barudilla, but somewhere he is benefiting out of it. For example, for government employees, there is something called as pension fund. NPS, National Pension Fund. Government will contribute to their pension fund. ಈಗ ಪೆನ್ಷನ್ ಫಂಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೇನು? ರಿಟೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸಿಗುವಂತ ಸ್ಯಾಲರಿ ಟೈಪಿನ ಇನ್ಕಮ್. ಸೊ ಆ ಪೆನ್ಷನ್ ಫಂಡಿಗೆ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ ತಿಂಗಳು. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ದರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಹೂ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯಿ, ಇಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯಿ, ಫಾರ್ ಹಿಮ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಸ್ಯಾಲರಿ ಇಸ್ 50,000. His salary income is 50,000. Government is also contributing rupees 5,000 towards his pension. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ receive the income is to 50,000. If you ask his paycheck, 50,000 ಬಂದಿರ್ತದೆ. But 5,000 is deemed to be received. ಅದು ಅವನ ಇನ್ಕಮ್, ಅದು ಅವನದೇ ಇನ್ಕಮ್. So 5,000 is deemed to be received. So ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಫಿಸಿಕಲಿ ರಿಸೀವಿಂಗ್, ಐದರ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯೋ ಕ್ಯಾಶ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯೋ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ರಿಸೀವ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುದು. ಡೀಮ್ಡ್ ಟು ಬಿ ರಿಸೀವ್ಡ್, ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ, ಸ್ವೀಕರಿಸಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಪರಿಗಣಿಸಲ್ಪಡುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಆಗಿರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಪರಿಗಣಿಸಲ್ಪಟ್ಟದ್ದು. Those are in nature of income. So everything that is received or deemed to be received in India, everything that is received or deemed to be received in India. Next one, income which accrues or arises or deemed to accrue or arise during the previous year. Sir, what is this concept of accrual? Account students ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ತದೆ accrual ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಏನು. What is this accrual? Accrual ಮತ್ತೆ ಡ್ಯೂ ಅಂತ ಇದೆ, ಎರಡು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ, accrual ಮತ್ತೆ ಡ್ಯೂ. Sir, what is this? So let us say month January, or I will take the month of March, which will be much easier for explaining. This person works from 1st March to 31st March. This person works from 1st March to 31st March. ಇವನಿಗೆ ಸ್ಯಾಲರಿ ಸಿಗುದು ಯಾವಾಗ? ಐದರ್ 31st March ಗೆ ಸಿಗ್ತದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಏಪ್ರಿಲ್ 1st ಗೋ ಏಪ್ರಿಲ್ 5th ನೊಳಗೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಸಿಗ್ತದೆ. Based on the company's policy, income will be received in the year April. In the April, income will be received in April. This is how the policy works. I work in the college, so for me, income is for me the salary is paid next month. Salary is paid next month. So accrual ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೇನು? What do you mean by accrual? See, every day he works. Every day work ಆಗುವಾಗ ಅವನ ಪಾಲಿನ ಸಂಬಳ ಅಕ್ಯುಮುಲೇಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ. See, actually the salary which he is receiving is towards the work which he has done in the previous month. So when he works, ಅವನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಅವನ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಅಕ್ಯುಮುಲೇಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ, ಎಕ್ರೂ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ. ಎಕ್ರೂ ಆಗುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೇನು? ಒಟ್ಟಾಗುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಡ್ಯೂ ಆಗುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೇನು? ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಪೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಇರುವಂತದ್ದು. ಸೊ 1st April ನಂತರ ಸ್ಯಾಲರಿ ಪೇ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ as ಡ್ಯೂ ಸ್ಯಾಲರಿ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಪೇಡ್. ಎಕ್ರೂ ಆಗುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೇನು? ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗುವ ಡ್ಯೂ ಡೇಟ್ ಬರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ನು ಸಹ, ಆದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಇವನ ಪಾಲಿಗೆ ಒಂದೇನೋ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಅರೈಸ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಇವನ ಪಾಲಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ರೆಡಿ ಆಗಿದೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ accrual. That is called as accrual. So let us say a client comes to you. A client comes to you. He takes your service. The moment he takes your service, there is an accrual of fees. ಅವ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಒಂದು ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ತಕೊಂಡ ಕೂಡಲೇ there is an accrual of income to you. ನೀವೇನೋ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರಿ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಒಂದು ಜನರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಆಯ್ತು, ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಒಂದು ಜನರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಆಯ್ತು. ಬಟ್ ಅದು ಡ್ಯೂ ಆಗುದು ಯಾವಾಗ? ಸೊ 10,000 is your charge. ಅದು ಡ್ಯೂ ಆಗುದು ಯಾವಾಗ? ದ ಮೊಮೆಂಟ್ ಯು ಮೇಕ್ ಎನ್ ಇನ್ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಇಟ್. ನೀವು ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಇನ್ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ, that moment it will be called as due. Or you will write invoice due in 15 days. ಆಗೇನಾಗ್ತದೆ, ಇನ್ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ 15 days ಒಳಗೆ ಅವ ನಿಮಗೆ ಪೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಆಗ ಡ್ಯೂ ಆಗುವಂತದ್ದು ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್. ಇನ್ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಕೂಡ ಡ್ಯೂ ಆಗುವಂತದ್ದು. ದ ಮೊಮೆಂಟ್ ಯು ಗಿವ್ ದ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್, ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ accrued. Similarly, when an employee works, the moment he works, the moment his effort, the moment his labor is utilized in an organization, the consideration for him accrues. The consideration for him accrues. Or bank case ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೇನೆ, simple bank case ಅಲ್ಲಿ. Let us say ನೀವು ಒಂದು FD ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರಿ, interest is payable at the end of the year. Interest is payable at the end of the year, but accrue ಯಾವಾಗ ಆಗ್ತದೆ? The moment you keep FD, every day interest add ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ, every day interest add ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತದೆ. ಬಟ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಆಗುದು ಯಾವಾಗ? at the end of the year. That adding process after each and every activity, or if after passage of each and every time, after passage of each and every day, is called as accrual. So income tax purpose ಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಆಗಲೇಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪಾಲಿನ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ accrue ಆದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ. Now, why that concept? I'll tell you. Why that concept? I'll tell you. Tell me, when the person works in the month of March and gets the salary in the month of April, tell me whether it is to be taxed in the month of March only, or it should be taxed in the month of April. When should it be taxed? If it is April, it goes to the next year. If it is in March, it comes to the previous year. ಯಾವಾಗ tax ಆಗಬೇಕು? Okay, for giving the answer clearly, I'll say 1920, 2021. 1920, 2021. So he worked in the year 1920. He is receiving the income in the year 2021. When it should be taxed? What do you think? When it should be taxed? When it should be taxed? To avoid this confusion itself, income tax says it should be taxed in the year when it accrues and not received. For income tax purpose, accrual is important. You worked in the month of March, you are going to pay the tax in the month of March only. Even though you are receiving the salary next year, that is not relevant to us. The benefit is generated in the month of March. That is why you are going, this will be subject to tax in this year. That is why accrual. That is why accrual. Accrued income ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಬರ್ಲಿ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಆಗಲಿ, ಬಟ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ಜನರೇಟ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, at that moment you are supposed to pay the tax. Otherwise what happens is, ನೀವು ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಡಿಲೇ ಮಾಡಿ someday you will escape the tax. For that purpose, what income tax department says, when you receive is not relevant to us. When the income generates, when the income comes up, you have to pay the tax immediately. You have to pay the tax immediately. So that is how it is. That is the concept. That is why whatever the income which accrues or arises in India during the previous year shall be subject to tax, will be included in his total income. Income which accrues or arises outside India, even if it is not received in India or brought to India during the previous year. So Veera is an Indian resident. Veera is an Indian resident. She has a house property in United States. She has a house property in United States which she has let out. ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಯ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಅನ್ನು ಇಂಡಿಯಾಕ್ಕೆ ತರುವುದು ಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಡೆಪಾಸಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈವನ್ ದೆನ್, ಸಿನ್ಸ್ ವೀರಾ ಇಸ್ ಎ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ and ordinary resident, her income which is generated in US will be taxable in India. Income which is generated in US will be taxable in India because she is resident, ordinary resident. And that is why the categorization of resident, ordinary resident, resident, not ordinary resident. Think about a situation. ಈಗ ವೀರ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಆದ್ರಿಂದ ನಾನು ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸೇಬಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇನೆ, ಆರ್ಡಿನರಿ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಆದ್ರಿಂದ. ಸಪೋಸ್ ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಸೇ ವೀರ ಇಸ್ ಅನ್ NRI ಹೂ ಕೇಮ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಟು ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಇಯರ್. ಇಂಡಿಯಾಕ್ಕೆ ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷ ಬಂದದ್ದು, ಇಂಡಿಯಾಕ್ಕೆ ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮುಗಿಸಿ ಇಂಡಿಯಾಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದದ್ದು. ಬಟ್ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಶಿ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಅ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿ ಇನ್ ದಟ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ, ಶಿ ವಾಸ್ ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ದೇರ್, ಶಿ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಅ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿ ದೇರ್. Now the moment she comes to India, if you say everything is taxable, it will demotivate people to come back to India. It will demotivate people to come back to India. So what did they say? In case of resident, not ordinary resident. In case of resident, not ordinary resident, income which is arising outside India is not taxable. Income which is arising outside India is not taxable. Income which is derived from a business controlled or profession set up in India is taxable. Adu bere. That is different concept. But for a difference between resident, ordinary resident and resident, not ordinary resident is this point. For a resident, ordinary resident, income which is generated outside India also will be taxable. For a resident, not ordinary resident, income which is generated outside India is not taxable under Indian income tax. It is not taxable under Indian income tax. Okay. Coming to non-resident, anyhow, non-resident ಗೆ ಬರುವಾಗ ಎರಡೇ ವಿಷಯ. ಅವನಿಗೆ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದರೂ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಜನರೇಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದರೂ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾತ್ರ ನೀವು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಎ ಫಾರಿನ್ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್, ಅ ನಾನ್ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಎ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಡೆಪಾಸಿಟ್ ಇನ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ. ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಡೆಪಾಸಿಟ್ ಇದೆ. ಆ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಡೆಪಾಸಿಟ್ ಇಂದ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬರ್ತದೋ ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕಿ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್. ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಕಂಪನಿಯಿಂದ ಡಿವಿಡೆಂಡ್ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಆ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಕಂಪನಿಯಿಂದ ಡಿವಿಡೆಂಡ್ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಎಷ್ಟು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಬರ್ತದೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಬರ್ತದೋ ಅದರ ಮೇಲೆ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕಿ. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸೇಬಲ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್. That's it. So this is about taxability based on the residential status of different persons. Different persons. With this, the residential status part is over. So simple. Now, ಏನು logic ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, for a resident, ordinary resident, everything is taxable in India, whether the income is generating in India or whether income is generated outside India. Everything is taxable. For a resident, not ordinary resident, income which is generated outside India is not taxable. But one thing you have to remember, if the business is controlled by India, if he is an employee of a business which is controlled by India, or a profession which is set up in India, or a profession set up in India, despite of the fact that he is receiving the income outside India, it is taxable. Hege anta helidre, let us say Infosys na ಒಬ್ಬ employee who is a not ordinary resident, means he is working on site work ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾನೆ. So he is a not ordinary resident. Infosys na ಒಬ್ಬ staff is a not ordinary resident. He is earning the income outside India. ಅವನಿಗೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತದ್ದು outside India. But still, since the business is controlled in India, this income, whatever he is earning, will be taxable in India. ಅದೇ ಆ ನಾನ್ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಫಾರಿನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಡೆಪಾಸಿಟ್ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸೇಬಲ್. That is not taxable. So this point you have to keep in mind. For a non-resident, only those income which is generated in India is taxable. ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಅರೈಸ್ ಆಗುವಂತದ್ದು, ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಆಗುವಂತದ್ದು, ಈ ಎರಡು ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಗಳಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಅವನು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಆಯ್ತು. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ನಾನ್ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್. ಫಾರ್ ಅ ನಾನ್ ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್. So this is categorization of residential status and scope of taxation based on residential status. One of the very important topic which may come up to 8 to 10 marks, 10 mark question. One area we have covered up elaborately. If at all any doubt persists, please do raise. Okay.